is E3. Maybe in some references you will see more than these types, but for this class I'm going to talk about only E-line, E-LAN, and also E3. Actually, E-line is the point-to-point Ethernet WAN, point-to-point Ethernet WAN. You know that in the Ethernet WAN that we have learned before, in compare with the serial point-to-point, actually we have learned about the E-line. The point-to-point Ethernet WAN or the point-to-point Metro Ethernet means that we are connecting two sites together directly with the Ethernet connection. Okay, I will talk about that, but for now we can understand the E-line is the point-to-point Ethernet WAN, and also the Ethernet WAN in E-LAN is such as the full mesh, okay, Ethernet connectivity, or if you want you can use the multi-point Ethernet WAN. And also about the E3, we can say this is a point to multi-point. I will explain all of them in this video, okay, and you will learn about them, the differences, how we can address them, and some other things. But first you should learn about some of the terminology, some of the rules that we are using in all of the Ethernet WANs types, for example in E-line, in E-LAN, and also in E3. In this scenario, as you can see, we have four routers: router 1, router 2, router 3, and router 4. I'm going to show you how we can connect these routers together with different type of the connections. For example, we can start with the generic terminology that we have. Let me to first implementing a simple scenario. After that we can talk about the detail. First we should add some interfaces in this router. Let me to add some interfaces. After that we can talk about the different conditions that maybe we can experience. Look at here. This is the first scenario. First, I'm going to show you the point-to-point E-lines. For point-to-point E-lines, you need to connect your for all of the Ethernet WANs connection, and also for the point-to-point E-line, you need to connect to the service provider, okay, only with one link, not with multiple links. Look at here. This is the Ethernet, Metro Ethernet service provider. Okay, as you can see, we are connecting our sites to the, for example, service provider. This is the Metro Ethernet WAN service provider. Okay, and after that, as you can see here, we have only one link between the R1 and also R2 and also the service provider. Okay, let me to explain some of the detail about these links. Look at here. This link is in most cases is one fiber Ethernet link. This is a fiber. I will give you some information about this fiber link, such as the types of the fiber that is common when we are using the for example Metro Ethernet. But let me first say that this is a fiber. You know that about the fiber, we have this capability to extending the fiber, for example, to some kilometer, or maybe more, 10 kilometer, 20 kilometer, or 100 kilometer. But you know that the service providers needs to install some facilities near to the multiple customers. For example, assume that in one city, okay, in one street, we have multiple customers. That service provider can install a facility to, for example, that place. After that, the customers can connect to that facility with the fiber link. For example, we cannot use only one point for one service provider to all of the customers should connect to that point. Okay, assume that one of the customer site is residing in east of the city, and another is residing in the for example west of the city. Okay, and maybe two of one of the other branches is residing in the south of the city, and you cannot expect that these branches connect only to one place. Because of that, we need more facility of the service provider to connecting to them. But in this example, I'm not going to talk about the physical location and some other things. Because of that, we are assuming that here we have a service provider and our branches are near to the service provider. Okay, because of that, the service provider can give us one fiber link. You shouldn't install this fiber link. The service provider should give this fiber link to your building. Okay, and after that, now you have connected to the service provider. Actually, the point that you are connecting to that point for connecting to the service provider is a POP. Okay, we call it the POP. POP is the abbreviation of the point of presence. Okay, point of presence is a place, is a point that you are connecting to that point. Okay, this is near your building in most cases, and because of that, actually now you have connectivity to the service provider. And now this is the topology. In this topology, we have 4 branch. Okay, these 4 branch are connected to the service provider with fiber links that is provided by service provider for us. And after that, we are connecting to the point of presence in the service provider. You know that here inside of the service provider, we have some detail. For example, here maybe we have many devices such as the switches, such as the routers, and some other technologies. Okay, but you know that in this video I'm not going to talk about the detail of the inside of service provider. We know the result of this, for example, techniques that we are using in the service provider. The result is that we can connect our sites to each other. But what is happening in the service provider? You will learn about the detail of the service provider, for example, function in the service provider courses track from the Cisco certification track. And here we are only using some of the results of the service provider functionality. The detail of the service provider functionality, how it can provide this service for us, what are the technologies that we are using in the service provider is not important for us. But let me to give you some terminology. From the view of the service provider, this fiber link is the access link. Okay, why? Because with this for example, with this link, we have access to the customer. This is the access link from the view of the service provider. This is the terminology from the view of the service provider. This is access link. Here we have access link, and here we have access link. Okay. Also, about the service provider, okay, we have some other terminology. For example, from the view of the service provider, the connection with the, for example, customer is a UNI or user network interface. Let me to explain it. Look at here. In service providers here, for example, in the POP, we are using a switch or a router to connecting the customers to each other. Okay, the detail is not important for us. Assume that here we are using switch or router. Both of them are possible. Switch has one interface, okay, connecting to the customer. This is the UNI or user network interface. Why? Because the switch uses this interface to connect to the customer. We call it UNI. In the service providers, we have some terminology that is beyond the scope of the CCNA class, but about the connectivity with the customers, okay, we are using the term UNI. This is the UNI, means user network interface. Network means the service provider network, and the user means the customer, okay? This is the customer of the service provider. Actually, in each service provider, we have some edge device. This is the overall or generic terminology in the service provider. In service provider, we have PE or provider, okay, edge device. Provider edge such as this device, this switch or this router. In provider edge can be switch or router. Also, we have P router. P means provider router. Provider routers are the routers inside or provider, for example, switch. Okay, provider routers or switch are devices that are inside of the provider, such as this switch or the router. Means in the core of service provider. Okay, but the interface of the PE or provider edge device that connect to the customer routers or customer, for example, switch is calling the UNI or user network interface, the interface connected to the user. You know that about the users also here we have the router. In most cases we are using router, but if you want you can use router and switch. Okay, why? Because